So it's funny how we change our minds, and it's funny how things open up to us when we're doing and overthinking, especially. So, a couple of different things. I'm really probably not going to stop having insights or speaking, but I'm also going to integrate the AI like I've been doing. And I'm going to have these phases now where I'm doing more speaking or doing more AI or doing more of any of this that I do. Some of it may be more demos of tech, etc., right? That's the first thing, and I think what we do as creators is we tend to go into this putting yourself in a box where you're like, what is the direction of my show? Where are we doing? Other thing is that I've actually met a lot of you now, and some of you happen to be more in corporate and blind services. Some of you happen to be doing the training. Some of you happen to be people who are just out here living blind, sighted, autistic, disabled, whatever. And I really started to understand that different places have different experiences. And to be completely honest with you, the city that I live in now is so much kinder and nicer that it's very strange. But if there was anything that I could do to help our community at this point, because I've seen exactly what we would need as far as like changes. I've done training in the past year. I've done all these different sort of like trial and error things like anybody else who is an adult. And what I realize is how receptive people are. Like if you really just sit down and have a discussion with them about why things maybe didn't work or what could be better, or you might even learn a lot of things. You might even learn that sometimes it may not even be the state. It might not always be the service's fault, even though I do think there needs to be changes, and I'm not going to necessarily completely change my entire thinking on what we could change. Sometimes it's the clients of these services that are not open-minded to changes, but maybe the counselors or the workers or the teachers might even be more open-minded to tech. It's very, very interesting, but I have had discussions with you guys, and once I've kind of realized that it's probably both. It's probably everybody that is not open to change. It's probably not just one entity. It's probably all of us as a collective at this point that is receptive to change. An insight really just flew over me and hit me, and it really just, I had to stop for a minute, and then I'm like, yeah, this is really going to lead into another. I'm going to have to upload this insight, but I'm going to have to really think it over in my head, because what I just realized is that we really can't just put all the blame on one thing. And I've had to fight in the past to get any kind of work and all this kind of stuff. But I also think that different cities and states and towns, even maybe even different counties, have different responses to how they treat clients or how they do services or their training. And actually out here, I really feel like they are trying to be involved in the clients. They are trying to do a lot. And when I was younger doing a lot of the classes and stuff, I didn't recognize that. And I think that's why a lot of you are going back into schooling and things. I really feel like that's why a lot of you are going back into training, because you're realizing maybe you're a lot more mature than you used to be and you want to get something out of it. That doesn't mean that I necessarily am going to take that same path, but I don't necessarily, as long as you know that that's not the only thing you need to do in your life, and you realize that maybe it's okay to go back into some things and revisit some things. And it's very interesting, the insights that we gather as we go out and do things and actually talk to people, because my mind for so many years has been stuck in perception and judgment and all this kind of stuff, even though it stems from me feeling judged, my family feeling judged, things like this. But once we get out and talk to people, you find out that actually you don't know everything and it's not completely the way that you think. And people, even that work really high up in corporate, are actually human and they're very kind, and they don't, especially when they're outside of the office. But even inside the office, they care. But it's a different feeling when you get people outside of the office and when you get to know them and things, and when you get people outside of their classrooms, when you get people outside of their homes even, because we feel like we have to constantly hold on to our survival every second. We have to constantly hold on to our security and even our place in the world, right? Like we feel like we have to constantly hold on to our purpose. And I was talking to a friend today that reached out and just about life, right? And I was immediately thinking about the resources that I've gathered over the years and how they could actually help. And I'm just like, what have I been doing all this time? Because you know so much, and at a certain point that you can't unknow it, but then sometimes you think you know and you actually don't. And I feel like you get to a place in your maturity and in your life where you're like, I might have enough experience that I don't need school, but I could help. Or I have enough experience that I may not need training, but I could do something to change some things or help or be an influence in any way, or, connect with people who want to listen. Or even if it's not about that, you just find common ground with people in other areas of interest, depending on what you're doing outside of the office, especially like over the weekends and things. And it may not even have anything to do with work or corporate. And you might just see that they're a person. You might just see that things are not perfect for them either, and that maybe they agree with you, but there's other people involved that are around as well. May not even be just clients, but it might be companies, it might be clients, it might be teachers, it might be other people that also have a say in things, and you just don't know everything. And aside from that, being multifaceted in nature, I really am starting to realize how much I feel that we need to live up to being multifaceted, and we might have like a main church that's actually turning out to be really welcoming, and then other churches might be involved as well for different purposes that fit our life as well. Other spiritual communities and mindfulness things, activities and outside sources and things might also be a part of life. And when I'm realizing the more that I want to get involved in even just the little things when it comes to the blind community, I realize how much the services out here does try to really do things and reach out. But you take what you need or what resonates, and you realize, okay, I might not even need to be a client, but I can work with it. I can understand it. I can accept it. I can help it in some way. I can be in a position. And you might realize that, or you might realize, hey, I might need to be a client for a little bit and see where it can go. And in a lot of ways, when you get around people who are doing things, whether they're preaching, whether they're providing services, whether they are counseling or teaching or in any way, maybe they're people who are in the classroom, they're students, they're learning. You start to find that people are actually a lot more understanding, even of your own situation, when you sit down and discuss things with people, when you talk about life. And you allow them to talk about themselves, you ask questions and things. What you realize is that actually they are a lot more receptive and understanding towards you and your own life situation, and even the hardships and things than maybe you would have realized. And so I guess in growing up here and saying that I've been wrong in a lot of areas and I'm working on it. And that also means recognizing that I'm simply in a different city, and the services out here might have changed since I've last been here over the last 15 years or so. 15 years is a big jump, and they might have had a lot of issues back then that they've improved or upgraded or that they're still working on, but that's life. And even a lot of people in success who find themselves entrepreneurial or in any kind of creativity, right, find themselves on a certain level working, networking, or connecting with corporate in some way. And to try to make it like so divided up that we have to be the enemies and church has to be the enemy and corporate has to be everybody's the enemy but us, right? Or we have to not back down. And yes, I agree, you don't back down and you don't give up the power that you've maybe earned, right? If you've earned your own empowerment in life, you're not necessarily going to give that away, and you wouldn't, and I would hope not. And that's where the right relationships matter a lot in business and family and friendships in life, right? You're not going to give up everything that you've worked for if you've really come far in life. And I'm talking to more or less a community, and I think for some of us, we find a more diverse setting in broadening our disabled community rather than just being in a blind bubble anyway. And so that's kind of what is interesting. But I also think that you can learn that out here could even be better. Like if you go to a new place or any of that, there's a lot more choice, for example, out here than there was where I was at before. A lot more choice and options and different types of schooling and a lot of different things. Do I want to do schooling? No. But to be a part of it in some way could be cool. And so for you, it might be that you're recognizing there's a lot more choice in spirituality where you're at. There's a lot more choice in gym membership. There's a lot more choice in books. There's a lot more choice in bookstores. There's a lot more choice in places to live. Or hopefully you get yourself to a place where you have a lot more housing resources if that's what you need to do. But in any case, to be completely against an entity at this point or to be completely like not wanting to work with it is probably taking away any sense of thriving in your life, any sense of survival in your life. But that doesn't mean you can't outgrow something. That doesn't mean you can't decide it's not for you, or that it's redundant after a certain point. Like you can only do so much training before it gets to be repetitive or feel like I've already kind of learned how to do this in my own way or with my own family. And you recognize when maybe that stuff has kind of ran its course. But you always keep multiple resources in your back pocket. You always have contacts. You always have people to network with. And I always tell people, reach out to me because I could help in this area. I could help in that area because I know that I have the resources and knowledge for this. I might not be good at everything. I might not know everything. But in this particular area, if somebody needs this resource, I want to be that go-to. I want to be there for people in our community in that way. Because in a sense, I can't really erase my passion that I have for this work. And it's really teaching me about myself that I might have been wrong about some things, but I really do care in my own way. And what's interesting is I've even heard of a lot of some stories in which, honestly, some of the centers and training services and stuff had acted very human and very kind to parts of my family where I didn't even know. Just having discussions. You've got to really just discuss things with people and get out of this debate mindset, because when you get into a debate mindset, you're not going to listen very well and you're not going to learn very much at all. And you're always going to have some kind of rebuttal or some kind of argument to come back with. And I don't think that that's, once you become an adult and you mature at a certain level, I don't think that that is absolutely necessary anymore. Because at the end of the day, we all just really want to do something in life. And even the most peaceful people who believe in peace the most and detach the most, they want something as well. That's why we have things books and authors like Eckhart Tolle and Actualize.org with his courses and work. And, all these people, because at the end of the day, our minds have this sense of like, you have to fight because, back in the hunting days, you had to hunt or be hunted, right? And so, but this applies now to, you have to form a pact, or, a pack of wolves or anything like that. You have to form, in a sense, and make a pact with yourself that you're going to survive, that you're going to take care of yourself, that you're going to be strong. And I'm still looking for a lot more different AI resources. I'm getting into a process of like strategy journaling or existential journaling, or they call it micro journaling, where you're journaling throughout your day. I'm kind of doing that maybe with Apple Journal. There's AI journaling out there that is more for me, and I'm kind of really just exploring that right now. I've done exploration of planning. I know what to do if I want to plan, but I'm at a point where I want to process differently. I'm still creating music. It's been a little personal, but I'm uploading when there are tracks that really hit and are deep enough and everything like that. AI is going to definitely change our landscape over the next decade. So I just think we need to be open-minded, and it would be so cool to see these disabled services, blind services, deaf services, autistic services to go with the changes. And it would be really cool to see clients just open themselves up to these kinds of changes and be less about companies that want to charge huge prices for things that really don't do enough to justify the price. That's huge. But a lot of that is not just because of entities or services. But I do see where entities and services lack in different areas that could really, they could go a little more off of a case-by-case basis. They could be a little bit more, they could offer a little bit more to individuals and situations and circumstances. And I think that we're all kind of coming to terms. I think talking to each other is going to be the first step, and educating each other on like, what are we struggling with, and what you might be struggling with, even as somebody who's inside the office or inside the classroom or up in the tower somewhere, whatever, like, because even the leaders are struggling. And if we just can understand that, then we can go on about our lives. And again, you might really want to be mainstream at this point. You might be fed up with the whole thing. You might have worked your ass off. I've been there. You've worked your ass off with these services and you're done. And so I don't doubt that at all. But what I think it gets to be unhealthy is when you say there's no room at all to even discuss anything, or to maybe see or be curious about an upgrade in life or what could happen next. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope that this kind of helps you take care of yourself, take care of your life, take care of each other, and let's stay connected.